At 78, David Letterman has finally chosen to speak with a level of honesty he avoided for decades. Not to settle scores, David Michael Letterman was born on April 12, 1947, in Indianapolis, Indiana, into a working-class family that understood survival far better than show business. His father, Harry Joseph Letterman, ran a small flower shop while battling heart disease, struggling to keep it afloat. His mother, Dorothy Marie, worked as a church secretary to help cover the bills. In the modest neighborhood of Broad Ripple, humor wasn't entertainment, it was currency. At the dinner table, jokes softened hardship, and young David learned that laughter could be a form of control in an uncertain world. He attended Ball State University, studying radio and television, believing his future would follow the traditional path of broadcasting. After graduating in 1969, he landed a job as a weatherman at WLWI in Indianapolis. But instead of treating forecasts seriously, he turned them into comedy, once congratulating a tropical storm for being promoted to a hurricane. In 1974, he was fired. As what should have crushed him instead became the push that changed everything. Working shifts at an Atlas supermarket to survive, Letterman spent his nights writing jokes and studying comedians on television. One man stood above all others, Johnny Carson. Carson's effortless charm made millions feel like insiders, and Letterman watched him obsessively, sensing something deeper beneath the polish. In 1975, with less than $2,000 in a station wagon packed with everything he owned, Letterman drove to Los Angeles. He had no connections, no agent, and no backup plan. He performed at the Comedy Store late at night for crowds that barely noticed him. He wrote for game shows like The Gong Show and The $20,000 Pyramid, quietly learning how television really worked while sharpening a strange, subversive style that didn't quite fit anywhere yet. His first major opportunity came in 1980 with an NBC morning show that lasted just 4 months. Critics called it too weird. Letterman called it a lesson in what networks feared most. But the moment that truly changed his life came earlier, on November 26, 1978, when he appeared for the first time on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. He was so nervous he felt physically ill. His jokes fell flat at first. Silence filled the studio. Then Carson did something small but powerful. From behind the desk, he smiled and gestured for Letterman to keep going. That encouragement unlocked the rest of the set. The audience warmed. The laughs came, cute. When Letterman walked backstage, Carson was waiting and said simply, "You'll be back." It wasn't a prediction. It was a statement. Over the next 4 years, Letterman appeared on The Tonight Show 48 times. An unspoken bond formed between the nervous newcomer and the reigning king. Carson began quietly advocating for him behind the scenes. He saw in Letterman the same Midwestern sensibility, the same intelligent absurdity, the same loneliness masked by humor. On February 1, 1982, NBC gave Letterman Late Night with David Letterman, airing directly after The Tonight Show. It was Carson's influence, even if never publicly acknowledged. The show transformed late-night television. Stupid pet tricks, top 10 lists, Velcro suits, awkward interviews, and deliberate discomfort became art. Letterman didn't just tell jokes, he created moments. By 1985, he was winning Emmys and being labeled the future of late night. The succession felt inevitable. Then, in May 1991, Johnny Carson announced his retirement. What followed wasn't supposed to be a battle. Carson had made his preference clear privately. He wanted Letterman. But NBC executives saw risk. They chose safety. On June 6, 1991, NBC announced Jay Leno as the next host of The Tonight Show. Letterman found out from a reporter's phone call. The betrayal didn't come from Leno. It came from the network that ignored Carson's wishes. What the public didn't know was that Carson himself was furious. Bulbarious. Behind the scenes, Carson tried to intervene. He called executives. He met with NBC leadership. He even considered going public. In private meetings at Carson's Malibu home, he told Letterman directly, "You're the only one who understands what this really is." Carson believed Leno was a comedian. Letterman was a broadcaster. NBC didn't care. Letterman's personal life during this rise was unraveling. His first marriage to Michelle Cook ended in 1977, crushed by his obsession with success. Loneliness followed. By the mid-1980s, at the height of his fame, Letterman was drinking heavily, alone, after tapings, trying to silence the voice that told him he was never enough. Alcohol became a quiet companion, reliable and destructive. In 1986, he met Regina Lasco, a production manager on his show. Their relationship survived decades of pressure, scandal, and public humiliation, including his 2009 on-air confession of infidelity and blackmail. She stayed, but the true transformation came with the birth of their son Harry in 2003. Fatherhood shifted his priorities in ways fame never could. Whoa. In 2005, during a kidnapping plot targeting his son, Letterman received a private call from Johnny Carson, already ill with emphysema. It was one of their final conversations. After losing The Tonight Show, Letterman moved to CBS in 1993 and hosted The Late Show for 22 years. He often won the ratings battle, but the victory felt hollow. Carson, in rare post-retirement moments, sent Letterman jokes and quietly criticized NBC decision. It was support, but also a reminder of what was lost. In 2000, after Letterman underwent quintuple bypass surgery, one of the first calls he received was from Carson. They spoke for an hour about fear, mortality, and the strange cost of making millions laugh while feeling utterly alone. Just days before Carson died in January 2005, he called Letterman one last time. His voice was weak, but his mind sharp. He confessed that fame had hollowed him out, that the show was the only place he felt real, that when he walked away from it, he didn't know who he was anymore. His final advice was simple and devastating. Don't wait as long as I did to figure out who you are without the audience. Only now, at 78, does Letterman admit how deeply that conversation broke him. He spent his life trying to become Johnny Carson, only to learn that Carson spent his life trying to escape being Johnny Carson. Letterman carries guilt, not just for losing The Tonight Show, but for repeating Carson's mistakes, letting work replace identity, letting applause replace connection. When he retired in 2015, he did what Carson never could. He walked away. He let go of the character. The beard, the silence, the ranch in Montana, and the long conversations on Netflix weren't reinventions. They were recoveries. The final truth Letterman shares is this: Johnny Carson didn't fail him. And he didn't fail Johnny Carson. Both were shaped and wounded by an industry that rewards performance over authenticity. Carson wanted Letterman to succeed him, not because he was funnier, but because he was human. Losing The Tonight Show felt like the greatest tragedy of Letterman's career. In time, it became his freedom.